Welcome. And Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. And of course, I think last Friday when we were recording, I had a family situation that developed, etc., etc. I did not get it off the recording. I just thought I'd go ahead and post the recording regardless. So what can I say? At any rate, let me go in. So this week, our Parsha is Chukat Balak. We are still working on Chukat, and we'll see how far we get. We're fairly into that particular Parsha. So I'm going to start sharing the screen at this point. So Chukat, in terms of the narrative, basically, at this point in the book of Numbers, the Israelites are ready to enter the land of Canaan, and the 40 years have passed by, and they're at the borders, the outskirts of the land, and at this particular point, they wanted to cross through the land of Edom, and where we left things off was that the Edomites did not want to allow them to cross through their land. This is also the Parsha that deals with the well, where, that is to say, where Moses, the rock, where Moses and Aaron, Moses strikes the rock out of frustration, and he's told as a result that he and Aaron will no longer enter the land of Canaan. They will no longer set foot in the land of Israel. And that's all in this particular Parsha. So here we are in the midst of the encounter with Edom, and we are here. Vayomer elav Edom, Edom said to him, Lo ta'avor bi, you shall not pass through me. Pen b'cherev etzei likratecha, lest I come out to meet you with the sword. Good diplomatic language there. Oh, well. So there we are on verse 18. Let's take a look and see if there is, in fact, a verse. Yep, there's the Rashi here, right here. Pen becherev etzei likratecha. Just the language, right? A little bit of unusual language. Lest I come out to meet you with the sword. Atem mitgaim bakol. You take pride. This is Edom speaking to the Israelites. You take pride in your voice, meaning prayer. That the real strength that we have and the efficacy that we have as descendants of Jacob is through our voices. Through prayer. Shehorishchem avichem, because your father, your patriarch, your ancestor, gave it to you as an inheritance. V'amartem, and you thought to yourself, Vanitzak el Hashem, we shall cry out, or we cried out to Hashem. Vayishma kolenu, and he heard our voice. And this, of course, refers back to Egypt, where the children of Israel cried out to God to spare them and save them. Va'ani, but as for me, this is Edom, the descendant of Esau, Eitzei elachem, I will come out to you, Bameh shohorishani avi, with that with which my ancestor, your ancestor, my ancestor too, but this is what he gave me as an inheritance. And of course, back in Genesis chapter 27, Ve'al chorbacha tichyeh, you shall live by your sword. So, standing back for one moment, we're just seeing the literary analysis going on here, the sense of the literary quality and style of the Torah here going on. Vayomru elav bnei Israel. Well, remember, we're supposed to use our voices, and so we're going to try and see if we can convince, right? Vayomru elav bnei Yisrael. So the children of Israel said to him, B'mesila ne'eleh. We are only going to use the highway. That's how we're going to cross your borders. And if we drink your water, if we want to drink from your water, ani umiknai, I and my herds, benatati michram, I will buy it. I will give you their purchase price. I'm not going to take advantage of you at all. In fact, there might see some profit for you in all of this. Rak ein davar, only no great matter. Beraglai evora, I will cross with my legs, literally. In other words, it's not a big deal. What I'm planning isn't a big deal. I'm just going to cross, that's all. And if in fact I take advantage, if you were to call it that, I'll be paying for it. I don't want to take advantage of you in any sense other than the ability to cross through your land, to take a little bit of a shortcut to get to the land of Israel. So, Rak ein davar, again, a little bit of a difficult phrase here. So Rashi interpolates it for us. Ein shum davar mezikcha. There's nothing that's going to cause you damage, cause you harm. Nothing. Just going to cross. That's it. Intend no evil, no harm, no threat. Vayomer, but he said, Lo tavor, no, you're not going to cross. Vayetze Edom likrato, and in fact, Edom went out to meet Israelites, ba'am kaved, with a heavy nation or a heavy people, uvayad chazakah, and with a strong arm. So in other words, obviously, we're talking about major force here. We're going to definitely not let them cross through them. Rashi. Uvayad chazakah, and with a strong arm, strong hand. Bahavtachat zikanenu. So it's interesting. Through the promise of our zaken, of our grandfather, referring, of course, again to Isaac. Isaac, that's who we're talking about. V'hayadayim yedei Esav. So the fact that it uses yad chazakah, right? And Isaac in blessing, Esau said, or rather, no, he wasn't blessing. He was commenting. Remember when Jacob tried to trick him, and he put the goat skins on his arms, and Isaac felt his arms, and he felt behind his neck where his mother, that is where Rebecca, had placed these skins, and he says, Hakol kol Yaakov, the voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau. And again, this is understood as deeply prophetic and symbolic. So again, looking at it from a literary point of view. Vayima'en Edom, and Edom refused Naton Israel to give permission to Israel, Avor Bigvulo, to cross his border. Vayet Yisrael me'alav, and Israel turned away from him. So that's there. Let's just make sure I got everything. Yes. All right. Onwards. Vayis'u mikadesh, and they journeyed from Kadesh. Vayavo'u v'nei Israel kol ha'ida hor ha'ar, and the children of Israel, that is the entire community, came to Mount Hor. Mount Hor. Kol ha'ida. So interesting. It mentions the entire community. So we're going to, take a careful look at that. Kulam shleimim, that is to say, they are all whole, ve'omdim likanes la'aretz, and ready to enter the land. Shelo haya bahin, because at this particular time there was not among them echad me'otam, not one of those shenigzera gzeira alehem, upon whom the edict had been stated, right? Where they were told, this is after Parshat Shlach Lecha, where they were told that that generation was going to die off in the wilderness, and so the 40 years, no question, they've passed by, and now the entire community is a fresh community, and anyone who had been told they were not going to make it, they were going to die in the wilderness, because that's what they had said they preferred, had died. Shekvar kalu metei midbar, because the ones destined to die in the wilderness had come to an end. Ve'elu, and these, me'otan shekativ bahem, and these are the ones regarding whom it is written in Deuteronomy chapter 4, Chayim kulchem hayom, you are all alive today. And this is the kol, right, and the kol ha'edah, the entire community. Hor hahar. Well, without the points, it looks like har hahar, right? Har al gabeha. We're talking about a mountain on top of another mountain. Ketapuach, and Rashi gives us a description, like katapuach katan, like a small apple, al gabe tapuach gadol, on a large apple, right? So it's a mountain with a bump on it. For afalpi, and despite the fact, because we have this tradition, sheha'anan holich lifnehem, that the pillar of cloud would go before them, umashveh, and would straighten out et harim, the mountains. In other words, they had a highway creating cloud that would just basically excavate all the hills and the valleys and set up a highway for them, right? Shlosha nisharu, nevertheless, 3 mountains remained, bahen, among them. Har Sinai, Mount Sinai, La Torah, for the purpose of giving the Torah. Vahar Novo, and Mount Nebo, Likfurat Moshe, where Moses would be buried. Vahor Hahar, and Hor Hahar, Likfurat Aharon. Interesting to meditate a little bit on the significance of these 3 mountains and what mountains represent, etc. See, essentially, mountains are barriers, and they can be barriers from a good sense, in the sense that they can protect you. They can be a natural fortification, or they can be barrier preventing you from doing what you need to do to get from point A to point B. And I'm wondering if the mountain is a protection in terms of the Torah. You can probably already anticipate. And the other 2 mountains, that these 2 individuals themselves were mountains and losing them there. And that we're going to see in a future Rashi very soon, in the sense in which they lost out on account of losing these great leaders.
Yeah. Quick question. So if they had this cloud, floating around here to, take care and essentially create the highways,
Yes.
How come in the portion we just read, why did they have to go ask for permission, to go through that land? I mean, shortcut, if they already got the cloud, yeah.
Okay. I think that's a really good question. I think that basically what the cloud was doing was working in uncontrolled territory. In other words, it was working in a wilderness that wasn't belonging to any nation. And they weren't using this cloud to hurt or to destroy other nations, okay? I mean, they wanted to do that. It was a whole different kind of situation. But it is true that what happened was, we're going to see, there's a tradition that there were certain deep benefits that Miriam, Moses, and Aaron all brought to the Jewish people. With Miriam, we notice that and this is in this particular portion, that right after Miriam dies, they can't find water. And that's the tradition regarding Miriam's well, that Miriam through Miriam's righteousness, there was water available for the people here, on pretty much for the most part. And when she died, they lost that. Sometimes, what can I say? Human nature. We don't appreciate something until we lose it. And likewise, what was the benefit with Aaron? The benefit with Aaron was this cloud that protected them. And so we're going to get into that a little bit. If not today, then please God tomorrow. But we're going to keep going. We'll keep going. Yeah.
But in this case, the cloud is not mentioned in the text.
No.
And as far as why did they have to do the other thing first? I mean, it makes sense that they did the other thing, and that kind of expands the story about Jacob and his brother, but then maybe it's also why the cloud came, because they said, okay, you can't go through this, sort of domesticated area, and you're
Yes.
going to have to go through this wilderness, but we'll help you with that. But they didn't really need the cloud until then.
Well, so yeah, I mean, throughout their journey over the 40 years, the cloud was doing this. Okay, was how, and of course, I think there's symbolism involved in this, and that is the idea that Hashem, that wanted them to get. Hashem wanted to fulfill the promise he had made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and that he was helping them as much as possible to get to the land of Israel and to be able to establish themselves there.
But if Esau had said, "Oh, sure, fine, go ahead," they might not have needed the cloud to go through those roads.
Right.
And, of course, then the story might have ended too, because there would have been reconciliation and everything was.
Well, we're going to see. Rashi's going to raise some interesting issues for us, okay? And maybe in the very next, we'll see. It's certainly one of his interpretations that's coming up soon, okay? And I know this is something to discuss, but we have very mixed feelings about Esau and how decent he really is, and the fact that we see him as a wicked twin. I mean, that's the irony, right? We've talked about this before, that Esau is our twin, and yet he is also, he is this bloodthirsty individual and this wicked person. And I think there's some just really interesting dynamics going on in that regard, that he is our twin. And I'm just thinking to myself, because it seems to me that when the Jewish people act in a worthy way, they are amazing. And when they act in an unworthy way, they're amazing, horribly. And that we see some real wicked behavior on the part of Jewish people as well, when they choose to turn away from what is supposed to be our destiny and our purpose as a people. And I don't need to go into politics.
And we can also discuss another time whether they're doing wicked things to go against the destiny or doing wicked things to further the destiny, starting with Jacob and cheating his brother like that.
Right. For which he pays, by the way.
Yes, and you were talking about the clothing
Yes.
of goat skin, and then Jacob got tricked by goat skin as well. So, I mean, there's
okay. You have to refresh my memory. Where was he tricked by goat skin?
When his brothers were telling him that Joseph had died.
Oh, nice.
And not only that, Joseph got in trouble with clothing after he had bragged, had kind of was showy with his coat, but then he got in trouble with Potiphar when she grabbed his clothing off and showed her husband, Potiphar's wife, excuse me, and showed the husband that, it just kept being a cycle. And my point about Esau is that the cycle didn't, of his being aggressive and cruel and, what did you say, evil, maybe the roots of it began in our behavior and in Jacob's behavior and in Jacob's mother's behavior, and how it affected him as a child that his mother was playing favorites and that his brother was cheating him, and that the father essentially played favorites in the sense that even though Esau was supposed to be the father's favorite, he ended up giving everything to Jacob. So, it's like that could be very well the roots of all the evil in Esau.
So,
I don't think he was born
yeah,
that way, is my point.
thank you. I love what you've done with this, and it's very good. So part of this, of course, is also the tradition that Esau was tricking his father, right? There's this that the reason, because they struggle with, why would Isaac, if Esau was not a good person, why did he prefer Esau over Jacob? And of course, the Torah itself says because he had a taste for game, something like that.
Yeah, they had more in common.
Well, that's on the surface, okay? But as you sort of dig into the meaning of that particular phrase, it has to do with the idea that Esau was tricking his father into thinking he was far more righteous, that he was pulling the wool over his dad's eyes. And that's also, reflects the blindness that we talk about, that the text talks about with regard to Isaac. But
And
he was,
it's also another parallel with the goat skin trickery.
yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, there's definitely some parallels there, but the idea that when Jacob tricked Esau, again, I I don't want to go into two wrongs make a right. I don't believe that. I think that is a terrible, terrible.
Okay, but I didn't say that.
No, you didn't at
Yeah.
all. No, I didn't feel you were. I'm the one who might be guilty of that, not you. Okay, and the idea that that it was justified for Jacob to trick Esau because Esau was tricking his dad. Those are the two wrongs making a right, and yet there is that dynamic going on there. But in some ways, maybe the Torah is teaching us that you look at the consequences of that kind of behavior, and it just goes on and on and on and on until you finally have that resolution with Joseph and his brothers, which is so powerful at the very end, where
And rivalry is much deeper, and family dynamics are much more intense when twins are involved.
yes, that's true.
And
That's true.
maybe especially male twins, but it's not about two rights making a wrong or saying this is justified, but it is kind of part of the explanation of how things get so bad.
Yes,
It's just kind of trying to understand people's dynamics and what's happening inside of them and how they relate to each other.
I agree.
Learned behaviors.
Yeah, but the other thing is,
And the stories I'm sure they told around the campfire, how somebody how I hoodwinked your grandpa or your great uncle, and this is what whatever. But I you know what? But I remember this is just they're real people ish, and they have good things and bad things.
right,
Everybody has good and bad.
right. But what we're trying to do is resolve this issue with our relationship to Esau. That's the thing. And at least from what I'm reading right now, I don't want to give spoilers, okay? Let's just keep going. We've got a tiny bit more time,
Okay.
and we'll see how far we go. Not it wasn't
I
gonna
think Jacob made a mistake by
uh,
not
by
way
not
back by
by
not trying to make amends with Esau.
but he does, don't you see, when he comes back? Remember, I don't want to spend a lot of time on that one, but
Okay.
about their
Okay.
last meeting, okay, and how
Yeah.
he bases himself, and he basically, and the sad part about it is that the tradition criticizes him for that.
Right.
He's criticized
And
for
I mean, they could have gotten along really well and
it.
shared areas and done, yeah, and made even greater whatevers. So
There's
I think it was a
clearly,
lost opportunity.
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't. I want to be able to see it through the lens of the Torah and through the lens of the tradition and how the tradition understands this, and still somehow find some satisfaction, because at the bottom of it all, the reason I'm doing this is to try and understand life better and to understand what the right choices are, etc., and how to deal with some of the grand issues of life that life presents us. Anyway, let's keep going here. So, yeah, okay. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe ve'el Haron b'hor har, and Hashem said to Moses and to Aaron at Mount Hor, al gvul Eretz Edom le'mor. Now look at this parenthetic phrase, on the border of the land of Edom, saying. And the question that now pushes itself out is, what do we need this for? Why does the Torah need to say on the boundary of the land of Edom here? And this is where this is going to come together. So I'm going to see what I can do as much as I can. It's okay. Let's see. Here we are. Al Gvul Eretz Edom. Here it is. On the border of the land of Edom. Magid. This is to tell us shemipnei shenitchabru kan lehitkarev le'esav, because they attempted to associate here, to draw close to Esau, harasha, the wicked. Nifritzu ma'asehem, their deeds were breached. V'chasru hatzadik hazeh, and they therefore lost this righteous person. Aaron, excuse me 1 second. That's pretty straightforward there. Let's keep going just to finish this up. V'chein ha'navi omer leYehoshaphat, and likewise later on, the prophet says to Jehoshaphat, who was a righteous king, basically. This is in the book of Chronicles, the second book of Chronicles, chapter 20. Behit chavrecha im Achazyahu, because you have associated yourself. Chaver, right? That's the word chaver, friend. But it has to do with association, with connecting. Lechaber means to connect. Interesting, right? The emotional connection of friendship. Because you have associated yourself with Achazyahu, with this king Achaz, who was a wicked king. Paratz Hashem et Ma'asecha. This is a quote from the Bible. The Lord has made a breach in your works. So we're going to have to leave it there, possibly if you have any comments.
But were Jehoshaphat and Achaz cousins? Because,
I don't think they were related at all.
Yeah, this is, I see this is different. So,
okay.
I mean, I think it makes sense that family might approach family, even though there have been some bad blood, and see if there was some kind of attempt to reconcile, and this could, be trying to create that attempt.
The tradition doesn't seem to feel that there was any justification in that, and in fact sets up Esau as being pretty, violent in terms of the request. So
yeah, I like Golda's word "missed opportunities," because I think that's true about the whole Jewish people and state of Israel, that there were lots and lots and lots of missed opportunities where things could have been done in a more reconciliatory way, not by our enemies and by us.
Yes.
And that we missed opportunities, they missed opportunities, and together we missed opportunities to have created something better, and it kind of says a lot about human nature.
Yes.
And we, even though we're Jews and special and whatever, we're human beings.
So I happen to agree with you. And I also think that to make any comparison between what's going on between the Arabs and the Edomites is totally unfair and is just looking for excuses. Anyway, let me stop.
I'm not sure what you're saying.
Oh, by somehow saying that there's some divine justification in not trying to work things out.
Oh, did I say? I didn't say that.
No, I didn't. I'm the one who said.
Okay.
Say that in terms of the missed opportunities. Okay.
Missed opportunities, yes. Divine justification, I never said anything
No.
about
I'm
that.
saying that's no. I'm
Yeah.
saying that you. Okay. What I'm trying to say is that part of what caused those missed opportunities is somehow thinking that there is that not trying to reconcile is a divine commandment.
I see what you're saying.
Based
And
on
that's what was my original point about whether or not some of these acts that we see as is not righteous were done done as part of going away from what God's plan is, or going towards what God's plan is, because it can be interpreted either way, and depending on how you look at it sometimes.
Right. I'm going to let it go at that. It's much more that could be said.
Definitely.
Well, yeah.